I'm Chris from Airwindows, and there's been an awful lot of stuff going on lately. And those who are following my videos know about some of those things. Some of it's a little bit personal. My mom passed away the other week. More relevant to Airwindows and plugins and stuff, Patreon's been changing around like crazy. Right now, I don't know what to tell you other than I will keep you posted. And if people pledge with the expectation of getting charged a certain amount, I will keep it in line with the amount that you're expecting to see. I'm trying to set it up so that people can make pledges for, say, $50 a month. No, that would be great. No, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. We're doing $50 a year as if you were buying one of the plugins that I make, which are coming out about every week a year. You could do more if you want. Here's the one for this week. Getting on into the holiday season. Although there's a lot going on, and I'm more than a little bit stressed out, I wanted to make sure to get this out because it's kind of sought after. This plugin is called ButterComp, and it is a little bit sort of famous among Airwindows followers. It's the sort of, it went into C-Strip, and C-Strip has a version of it, but this is the original ultimate version where, well, I'll just show it to you. Now, as you can see, this is not turned on yet. No change in sound there. And then we crank up the compression. Notice any difference? That's because the point of ButterComp is to be completely and utterly transparent. It's running parallel compressors that handle the positive and negative swing of the wave, which is something I don't think anybody else is doing. And it's interpolating between those two things. Point being that if you hit a big spike on one side of the wave, that side can compress and the other side doesn't have to. It was sort of tricky to come up with. And it's also interleaved compressor, so there's 4 independent compressors on every channel. I do these things to see how they work. This is what it does. And we can go back and forth between dry and wet. Now you might wonder, what good is this? I don't hear any difference. Now you'll find a certain amount of sort of texture going on with this type of thing. But here is one of the things that you might be able to do. Check this out. Let's hit it with 12 dB of gain all of a sudden. Boom. Now you'll notice it doesn't react instantly. And in fact, it's also kind of squishing in a little bit. The harder you hit it, the more it will like give you some headroom and stuff. What we can also do is go to 1. So we're going in 6 dB over 0 to hit this. You can also see this by doing dry wet. I'll put it back again. Here's the deal. This is supposed to be the ultimately transparent compressor. It's not super fast, although if you want it to react faster, you can use C-Strip and set the speed of C-Strip really high. But this was the original version, designed for, well, it's a little bit like just automatic gain control, but it's not really that, because if you hit it with sudden noises, it'll respond. It's just for like effortlessly moderating gain in such a way that you really don't hear differences or, oh, here, let me just fire it up some more. And there we go. We hit it with 6 dB over. and it's now compensating for that. And the raw signal is still pretty hot. So it's doing compressing, you just can't hear it. And now let's put it back to the original, what we had before. And with no sound, that's just the raw input, and it does peak out around 0. Then we hit it with compression, boom. And with this level, it's pushing it up a little tiny bit, but then it's compressing it back downwards, and you really don't hear the compression effect because it is handling both sides of the waveform independently. So essentially, if you are going into compression on one side, the other side compression doesn't kick in. And if you're going into compression on a single individual spike, the other interleaved section doesn't. There's basically, of the 4 compressors of each channel, there's a lot of stuff that just doesn't kick in, so it responds very smoothly to details, to sound stage. Everything that's going on is the amount of tonal coloration that you get from this compressor kicking in is almost nil. There it is, toning back down again. Or we can throw on a completely other track. It's one of my other tracks there. And again, if we get this 6 dB again, we can push it up, but then it hovers around about the same amount. Or if we give it 12 dB or 18 dB again. You start hearing the compression kick in. You push into it super hard, and the compression will hold things down. And we go back to 1, and it'll start coming back up again. Essentially, this just gives us a variety of different bus compressed tones, and you can use it on a track as well. If you have a track which has irregular volume stuff, there's the sweet spot where you go into it, and below a certain point, obviously it's not going to compress or kick in, but there's a smoothing effect. As you push harder, it'll bloom a little bit, and then it will start sort of holding things down as you push harder and harder. So it'll function as a compressor. But I don't think there's anybody else's compressor that quite works this way, where you can sort of fire it up. The way that it steps on stuff and lets reverb tails and things come out is very, very, very subtle. But if you want it to be even more subtle, you could always just use the dry-wet control. That's going to work kind of like a ratio. So purely 1-to-1, like this. And then if you want to throw in the full ButterComp, a little more bloom on everything there. And then we can combine them. A little more authority in the kicks and things there. ButterComp is $50. Oh wait, no, ButterComp is free, technically, because it's supported by Patreon. And I'm supported by Patreon, although Patreon's been acting weird lately. And I don't know what they're doing, but I will tell you this. The thing that they did with trying to change the fees was actually going to work in my favor. If I can have people donating at a rate of like $50 a year or multiples of plugins, I calculated it out so that you could do $50 a year or $100 a year and so on. The more hypothetical plugins you would be getting from me over the 50 or more that come out every year, the smaller percentage Patreon would take. So that was going to work out in my situation. But they've abandoned that, so they're going to go back to something. We don't actually know yet. We only know that they abandoned the idea for their readjustment, and I'll keep you posted. At any rate, what I can tell you is there's kind of no situation under which Patreon would completely fail to work for me because I'm kind of on the verge of being one of the people they take special interest in. I'm doing about $700 or more a month, and their stated intention was to have people who were kind of doing pretty good, but they weren't actually going to revolutionize their whole lives. And they wanted to set people like that up with a situation where suddenly you're doing so super well that you had the resources to do all kinds of other stuff. And then that would be like bait bringing other people in, which is legit. That's pretty much legit. It's legit if they're completely honest about how much people will actually be billed. And that's the point at which I'm kind of stuck. And I'm looking to have Patreon either communicate this or let me communicate it in my tiers. As the first time around, that's what I did. I changed all of my tiers to say what you would actually get billed. And I don't know, we'll see. I see no reason why they can't let creators specify that in their tier pricings if they want. If that's a problem, then we have a problem with Patreon, but that's not necessarily so. They haven't kicked me out or anything. And I think if they are wise, they will set it up so that people continue to get billed exactly what they pledged. Because the creators are willing to take whatever chunks out of their own side in order to have it work. The important thing is how we treat patrons. Anyway, ButterComp is one of the plugins that would be costing $50 if I was still selling them commercially. And it is now free, AU and VST, for all takers, or anybody who can't actually afford to buy a plugin under those circumstances, or anybody who's running on some incredibly old PC or Mac and just needs help and support with high quality plugins that will do the job. That's what I'm there for. That's what I want to do with my life. And in fact, the audio units and the Mac plugins support back to 10.6.8 or earlier, and the PC plugins are being built on a virtual box that's got something like Windows 7 on it. I don't know how farther back that works, but it's a VST2 and it's a generic, and there are a bunch of things that this will run on. So the goal is to have it run on absolutely anything that you might be working on. And that's by choice because I don't want to go around forcing people to upgrade their computers and software and stuff just to be able to stay, to continue to have access to my new work going forward. To me, it's not enough to have old work stay doable and you maybe still have access to that somehow. I want my new work to be available to people who are on a wide range of computers. And there's still some exceptions. I'm given to understand that the PC DOS SADI is having issues with my VSTs through a peculiarity in the naming. It's complicated. It's hard to cover absolutely everything, but I will cover as much as I possibly can. And, well, this is proving to be a really weird holiday season for everybody. I'm glad that I can still do this for you guys. And I apologize for the music because everybody hates my music, but I'm looking to start working with some of, my gear that I've accumulated over the course of decades and stuff and making something new. And that's going to be streamed live on Twitch. So if people absolutely hate Patreon, what you can do is jump on Twitch. People who are pledging on the Patreon at a rate of 2 plugins a year or more, you can have mod on stuff like that. It's not actually a job. There's not much that you would actually have to do, but just as a sort of badge of honor. Also, if you're at 3, 4, or 5 plugins a year, then I will happily link you on the airwindows website. And you can have your link sort of up in the sidebar there. And then if you're doing 5 plugins a year, I'll also stick your link or info or whatever you need to have me do on these actual videos. Like just over there or something like that. Because it's like, I was trying to do a thing with Patreon where it was all based on like $1 donations so that it would be statistically very even and there wouldn't be any wild changes. Well, Patreon's changes kind of threw a monkey wrench into that. I no longer feel secure doing that because I don't think it'll necessarily work out. But since I'm doing these plugins, I have the fallback position of going, okay, think of it like you're buying one of the plugins at $50 a pop or whatever, only instead of buying one of them a year and getting one plugin, you're buying one plugin a year and getting like more than 50. Lots. Because that's just how I roll and that's how I want to do it. And I need to get busy working on something else. And I can show you a little hint about what that might be. Just a little bit. But I have to build all kinds of other stuff because I can't just demonstrate something like that on a stereo track. I actually have to build either a mix or a bunch of different tracks that can be blended together. So I'll do what I can with that. And I hope you have good holidays that are slightly less stressful than mine have been. I hope you get stuff, such as ButterComp, rather than losing stuff, which I've been doing. But I really appreciate when people are rallying around the Patreon because here's the thing about doing business. And if you're doing business as a musician or something, that you're going to have to pay attention to this as well. If you change your whole system from something to something else, like from Kagi to Patreon, from Patreon to something else, you're going to lose at least half of your people and have to build it back up from scratch. That's just how that goes. So we don't actually want to uproot and be jumping from one thing to another. And who's to say that any new thing that we jump to won't also just go screwy whatever. So it's hang in there. You guys hang in there. I will hang in there as well. And we will get through all of this. And whatever I can do as far as like throwing plugins your way to help you get through all of this and have something nice to look forward to and something nice to work with as you do your music and as you do your stuff, that is what I'm here for. So happy holidays, Merry Christmas, all of the above. and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.